Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for episode 5 of the Beyond Insights podcast. I'm Alex Hoffman, Syft's engagement manager, if you haven't been here before, and I'm joined today by Jamie Bezuidenhout, who is our head of partnerships and a customer success manager at Syft.
Hi, everyone.
You might have been expecting to see Shay Stockdale today, as he was meant to be speaking, but unfortunately, like many people at the moment, he has come down with the flu. So we moved him until next week's podcast. And I've sprung this upon Jamie, who has very valiantly agreed to talk to us today about some of the ways in which you can train your team on using new software, some of the things he's learned from many training sessions.
Training lots of people.
Yes.
Luckily, it wasn't too difficult to prepare for training something that's quite near and dear to my heart. So yeah, taking my lessons from training different teams and people over time, and not only in software, but also in different industries too. And I think there's a lot of similarities between training people on software, new processes, new tools, new systems. So happy to be here and to share those insights today. Thanks for having me, Alex.
So I'm excited to get into it. So I suppose there's certain challenges I know that are common, no matter what industry you're in, when you're learning how to use new processes, new software, whatever it may be. What are some of the challenges that you've come across?
Sure, quite varied, but I think there's some common themes when training new people, whether it be on a new system, a new process, a new tool, or whatever the case may be. People are generally inherent or reluctant to change. So that's one of the big ones. Another key consideration is that different people learn in different ways,
Yes.
right? So if you're going to go in there with, one way of teaching, you're going to miss a large part of the audience, especially in group settings. And I think very often as well, after the training has been conducted, it kind of falls flat and there's no adoption of the new process, system, or tools. So those are some of the key themes that I've noticed when I have been training people over time on different softwares or systems or processes.
Interesting. I think the first one probably resonates with a lot of people. It's the kind of that idea of if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly, yeah.
So trying to show people that it's actually worthwhile to use this new software, to give it a go. If they've been using something else for 10, 20, 30 years, why should they make this move?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think getting their buy-in is key to kind of moving them or adopting the new software in the first place, because they will have that mentality of, well, I've been doing it this way. It seems to be working fine. Why am I now pivoting to doing it in a different way? So I think getting the users buy-in from the beginning is very important. And it generally helps if you've got someone, a champion, or a stakeholder at the top rung of the organization that's bought into the new system or process, so that they can champion the adoption of the tool. But it's also very important that you illustrate the benefits of the new process or the new tool, just to get their buy-in. So that's really important in getting that mindset shift and that change management process.
Yeah, I think definitely it has to come from the top. It has to come from people that they trust and respect and will listen to. And also to see that example of, okay, this is what you're doing now, which is all fine and well, but this is what you could be doing.
Yeah.
These are some of the benefits. Maybe it's saving you time, maybe it's improving productivity, whatever it is. You need to show tangible results of using this new software.
Absolutely. And I think it's also important that you also indicate that or display or demonstrate that you're there to support them along their journey. That's really important too. It's not like I'm going to do this training with you and then you're on your own after that, right? So that's really important too.
You need to have that continued support along the way.
Definitely.
And in terms of the different learning styles, I know you were saying you're quite a visual learner.
Yes, yeah. So personally, I like to learn visually. So I like to see things being put in action. But then after I've seen a demonstration of a new software, I'm also quite inclined to go in and practice myself. And in that way, I can assess where my shortcomings are, or knowledge gaps, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, that's personally how I prefer to be trained and how I learn. But you have to understand that different people learn in different ways, right? And when you're facilitating and you're doing group training, or you're just spending time on a one-on-one basis, it might not be the way in which that person absorbs knowledge and how they learn personally. So it's really important that you adapt your learning techniques accordingly to your audience. And it's also really important that you're asking questions and you're engaging with people when you are showing them something new.
Yes.
There's nothing worse than being on a training and it feels like, no one's in the audience and no one's asking any questions, no one's engaging. My favorite types of training are the ones in which the group and different people are almost preempting what you're going to be covering next,
Yes.
because it means they're focused, it means they're engaged, and they kind of recognize the capabilities and the benefits of the new process or system or tools. So it's important that if you're not seeing that level of engagement, that I don't want to say pick on people, but those people that do seem keen, or if they're not engaged or they're not paying attention or they're sidetracked, that you kind of give them the opportunity. They might just have grasped the concept really quickly.
Yes.
And that's why they're not engaging. They kind of see or understand where you're going with it. But it really does solidify that understanding if you are asking questions. And then you can also gauge whether or not you need to maybe go back and say, okay, maybe I covered this too quickly. Is everyone following? And break it up as well. A lot of the times when we're learning new systems, tools, or processes, it can be quite overwhelming for the end user.
Yes.
So, what's that saying? The best way to eat an elephant is bit by bit. Exactly. Yes. So be careful and be wary not to overwhelm your audience. Break it up, give people the opportunity to digest what they've taken in, and gradually progress from there. Patience is very important. Don't take your knowledge for granted as well. Just because you've taught or you're very comfortable with this topic, it's a completely different ball game for the user that you're teaching. So it's really important that you take your time to explain new concepts to someone who may be looking at the system for the first time.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really important to be able to gauge how familiar they are with the system already. So is this you expanding on their knowledge, or are they completely new to the system? How technologically savvy are they? Are they used to using systems like this?
Yeah, and I think learning style is once again quite important, right? And I think at Syft, we try to meet the customer where they are, right? And I know we're not supposed to be punting Syft too much.
The example of what you do, though.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the knowledge center, so that's more for the user that enjoys reading through really comprehensive, thorough articles with short instructional videos, top tips along the way. Then you've got the Syft Campus, which is, of course, on-demand learning, going through the system click by click to learn these tools in a lot of detail. And then, of course, you've got the opportunity as a Syft customer to always book time with your account manager.
Yes.
So if you've got those questions, you can have that conversation and then assess exactly where it is that the user needs assistance and guidance, and you can take it step by step. So again, different learning styles for different audiences, and it's you have to meet the customer where they are in the learning process.
Oh, definitely. I think it's important that we have all of these different ways to teach people. I know, because I also work a lot on Syft Campus.
Of course, yeah.
We've tried to make the courses consist of lots of quite short videos, so normally not longer than about 5 minutes. So I know we have one user who told me he likes to do 15 minutes of learning every morning, which I think is amazing.
Yep.
And you can actually get through quite a lot of the course in that way. Maybe within a week, he's completed a whole course. So he'll watch about 3 or so videos every morning, and that's enough. And that's also good for retaining the information, that you're not overwhelmed, like you were saying, by so much information. You can actually just watch those 3 short videos, take a short quiz, and then hopefully you will remember.
Yeah, of course. And I think very often if you are trying to rush through a lot of content all at once, you've kind of put the person off, right? They just feel overwhelmed and it seems really daunting and overwhelming. So, that's the last thing you want. You want the person to be excited to use this new system, process, or tools. So really important that you move at a gradual pace when covering new content for the first time.
And I think the third challenge you mentioned was not fully applying the software after doing the training. So maybe your team has gone through this whole process of learning how to use the new system, but then it's not really implemented in the organization. What would you suggest for that?
Yeah, so definitely a big challenge. You dedicated a lot of your time to learning this new system, tool, or process from scratch. And it's all very well and good. You might have, got certified as a pro or whatever, but it's meaningless if you're not going to put that into practice.
Yes.
And into action. So it's very important that training isn't seen as a spray and pray exercise. And we've done the training. You guys should all be well versed on this tool now. On your way, figure it out as you go. It's really important that the champion or the key stakeholder in the organization or in the team is actively driving adoption, and making sure that if there are any knowledge gaps, if there are any challenges with the team and their understanding of how the tool or product works, that you revisit that training.
Yes.
Or you reach out to the person who provided the training in the first place to say, hey, a large number of the team are still struggling with this aspect. Would you mind if we cover this again? And it's also, the onus is also on you as the trainer to follow up and to monitor usage. And assessments are a really great way to do this and to assess any knowledge gaps. And it's not put out there to shame anyone or to embarrass them, but it's if you are noticing any common themes with people going wrong with a certain aspect of the system or the tool or the process, okay, great, here the knowledge gap is, let's address that, guys. Let's get into a room and tackle this again, or go through this section again, and hopefully solidify that new information in a more meaningful way. So that's really important. Adoption. Again, training is not a once-off endeavor in any organization. For any tool or new process that you're learning, you need to be monitoring and ensure that that new practice, that new system, that new tool is embedded in the way in which people are performing their jobs.
Oh, definitely. So that saying of you don't use it, you lose it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's practice. And I think the more you practice and the more you're using the new tool, it's going to become embedded in your daily operation.
And I suppose as a trainer, you can also begin to see if maybe there are ways you should change your style of training. If there's one particular section that nobody seems to have grasped, maybe there's a better way you can explain it. Maybe you can use examples. Maybe you can make it more practical, whatever it is. You also learn from that experience.
Absolutely. I think, when you walk into a room, especially if it's a larger group of people, you're walking into a room, you can always get a sense of the energy in the room, right?
Yes.
So I think as a facilitator of training, it's also your job to kind of motivate and encourage, and give those affirmations. Guys, you're doing great, and just inject some energy into the room. But it's different if you're doing one-on-one coaching with a member of the team. If I'm doing one-on-one training, I always like to try get the person to lead and say, okay, cool, this is what we're looking for. Where would I go for that? Or, hypotheticals, if I were to want to see this presented in this way, where would I go and click next, and then guide them gradually along that. So it really does depend on the audience, and you have to be adaptable as a trainer. Otherwise, you're going to lose your audience, whether it be a big crowd or just one-on-one with, an individual.
At Syft, we actually do accounting training now, because a lot of us, although we work in accounting software, we are not accountants.
Yep.
So once a week, Lorica, who was on last week's episode, will teach us her acknowledge course.
Yep.
And she's very good at motivating us with acknowledgements, which are little mints that we get.
So the pun just continues.
Yeah, all the puns. But I find that's really helpful, because instead of sort of shaming you for getting the answer to something wrong, you get encouraged, an encouragement, basically. Exactly. So on that note, when it comes to assessing people and seeing where the knowledge gaps are, do you have any suggestions of how people can do that without sort of shaming the participants and making it so that they won't be put off the training or put off the software?
Yeah, I think if you're not familiar with the audience or the people that you are training, it's important, as you said, not to call them out and shame them in front of their peers. But if you do notice that, a participant is going wrong in a specific way, area of the new tool or software or process, that you address them privately, perhaps. That would probably be the more diplomatic way to do it. Of course, when you one-on-one with a person, you can say, stop, let's hold on. Why did you do that? Right. And then kind of engage in a conversation to understand what prompted them to do the thing that you want them to do incorrectly. Yes. But if you're in a group, it's very important. You don't want to discourage the person. You don't want to embarrass them. So yeah, maybe just have a separate conversation with them privately, and spend a bit more time with them. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Training one specific customer at the moment, and it's very interesting to see, one branch completely at a different level to another branch. And people almost apologize when they raise their hand and they're like, please, can you slow down? That for me is like great to hear that feedback, know. And people almost apologetically raise their hand and say, hold on, wait, I've lost you. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Some people obviously catch up a lot quicker and they follow you because it's almost innate to them. But yeah, it is very important that you kind of follow the pace of whoever it is that you're training.
And have you ever encountered people who were very resistant to the training that you were giving? Like the sort of people that are like, oh, no, we don't need to change anything. They're resenting that they're having to attend the training. Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, definitely. I think when training feels like it's compulsory and it's being imposed on them, that's when you get a lot more pushback. But when participants are attending training because they can, even before the training, identify the benefit that it's going to have to their daily lives and their way of doing business, it's a lot more easy to engage with them because you don't have to win them over during the training, right? But if you've just been shoved in a room and say, here, learn this tool or new system, it is a lot more difficult. So important to get the buy-in from the get-go so that you've got an audience that are receptive to receiving that information and being trained.
And if you were talking to an employer who wants to get their staff trained and they're trying to figure out what would be the right kind of training for them, should it be online, should it be in person? How would you suggest that they trying to figure out someone's learning style?
Sure. So I think as a leader in an organization, and if you as the leader were looking to train your staff on a new tool, I'm hoping that you would have some sense of your team and how they would prefer to learn, right? So don't try fit a square peg in a round hole.
Yes.
If you know that your team are really introverted, maybe don't send them on a huge seminar or something like that where they're forced to sit next to strangers. Give them the opportunity. Also try things out, right? I think when you're learning a new tool or a new system, it's important that as a leader, you create an environment that allows people to make mistakes, right? If they are wary that they're going to make a mistake that's going to cost the organization a lot of money while they're still learning a new system, it's going to put them off completely. They're going to be too nervous to try anything. So know your team, and know what kind of style they generally perform under or learn well under. And yeah, if you're not sure, try. So you could maybe send an article or a knowledge center article, for example, to your team and say, cool, let's chat about that. We didn't really read it. Well, that's an indication that probably, not long articles are not the way to go with that training. So try different things out. Again, it might differ from process or tool to tool. Trial and error, I guess, is the way to go. But it's also really important that you're reinforcing the training in different learning methods, right? So if you're doing an in-person training, supplement that with a different learning style and a different approach. But I think for me, I'm quite a practical person, so I always want to fiddle around, click on this, see what happens, and go from there.
And I think especially with software, you need to, learning the theory is very different from actually using the software.
Absolutely.
I think you need a bit of time to sort of play around with it by yourself, figure out exactly what it is that you don't understand, actually.
Definitely. And I think, in terms of the end user, more and more emphasis is being given to making the design of the system itself quite intuitive. Not always the case, however. I mean, a lot of the time we see systems being put out into the market that are completely, not user-friendly. And, you get onto it and you're like, oh gosh, where would I go next, right? So it can be tricky, but I think, to software developers, it is important that you bear the end user in mind. Is it intuitive? Is it easy to follow? would the average Joe know where to click next and see what it is that they would like to see and use the tool in a way that makes sense to the end user?
So very interesting. I actually recently read an article that Figma, which is a design system, wrote about how design is becoming more and more important for financial applications for exactly this reason of making it more intuitive and also making it so that users will trust your software. Yeah. Because if they feel like, oh, I can't even figure out how to do this basic thing, are they really going to want to, go through the training and all of that when it seems so impossible to figure out?
And it's tough, right? I mean, UI design is really difficult feat to pull off, especially the more complex the system becomes, right? Because it can become quite nuanced and in depth. So yeah, I think it is quite an art to have a system that is really complicated, but easy to navigate as the end user.
And I suppose in terms of training, if you look at something like, obviously we're talking about Syft now, because you train a lot of people on Syft, how do you know where to start? If there's a complete new user, how do you decide, okay, these are the features that we should focus on for an introduction?
Yeah, that's a very important, bearing in mind that a lot of the time it might be the user's first time seeing Syft. I always start with the first page that the user would see after they log into Syft, and then go through basic navigation. Top right-hand corner, bottom right-hand corner, bottom left-hand corner, top left-hand corner, and then straight after that, I go into support. Okay, cool. So this is where you go for support. Bottom right-hand corner, the chat box, and then point out the different avenues of support for that specific user, so that they don't feel alone in this brand new, potentially scary tool. But yeah, I always start at the very beginning and kind of go very gradually from there.
Makes sense. Also, you kind of have to, when you're so familiar with the software, you have to take off your everyday glasses and to put on the glasses of, what would I look at if I've never seen this before? Where am I likely to click on the screen?
Absolutely. I think, as a silly example, if you were teaching someone to use a vacuum for the first time, right? Just think about what you would do if you were using the vacuum and kind of break it down. Okay, cool. This is how it needs to be held. This is, the plug, and the plug needs to go into a plug point, right? When I'm vacuuming, these are the motions that I should follow. When the vacuum gets full, this is what I would need to do. This is how I'd go about emptying it. So yeah, if you can address it like that and think, okay, cool, as the user, if I'm the user of the system or the tool, being a vacuum cleaner, what would I need to know?
Yes. To throw a bit of a curveball now, what's something surprising that you've discovered in your trainings?
Sure. I suppose a big surprise, I'm always surprised by, there's generally one or two people that stand out in the training, and they kind of champion or advocate for whatever it is that I'm showing them, whether it be Syft or whatever the case may be. And that really helps raise the spirits of the rest of the participants in the room. So if you get someone that's like, oh, this is amazing, I didn't know that I could do this on Syft, it kind of perks up the ears of everyone else, because, I mean, let's face it, if you're doing 6 hours of training for a group of people, they get very tired of hearing your voice very quickly. So it's really nice to have that banter and back and forth with someone else in the room, and it kind of energizes you as the trainer as well.
Sure.
So it's always really nice to get engagement with any participant. Yeah, really positive.
Sure. Anything else that I haven't really covered?
No, I think we got the most of it, hey?
Cool.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week when Shay is hopefully recovered from his flu. And until then, good luck with your training.
Cheers, everyone. Keep well.
Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Insights podcast.
Please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to right now.
And please share with any of your colleagues or friends or family members that you think might benefit from listening to this podcast.
That's all from us. Until next time, see you then.